Jordan, when you're going through that phase, normally for a person to come out of a place that we've never been before, we need some kind of a source of inspiration, right? So
yeah,
and we like to find someone to say, well, that's my hero. Like I have a painting in my office called Dead Mentors. It's me in the painting with 8 other characters in a vault. We're having a conversation. It's a debate between 2 books, Communist Manifesto and Atlas Shrugged. So it's a discourse. They're having a debate, they're having a discourse. It's very interesting characters.
mm-hmm.
But you can tap into somebody. You're like, okay, I can tap.
Who are the characters? Who are the characters in the painting?
Let me. I just moved to Florida, so I got John F. Kennedy, I got Einstein, I got the Shah of Iran, Lincoln, MLK, Tupac, Ayrton Senna, Milton Friedman, and one other character I'm forgetting.
Great. So that's so good, because look, and you can surround yourself with these great minds, and you can what would you say, in some sense, you can choose them as your peers,
mm-hmm.
voluntarily, dead or not, right? It's a form of ancestor worship in some sense. And I mean that in a deep sense. And you can do that's one of the advantages of that is education, as far as I'm concerned, is pick your peers. And this instinct we have to find someone to admire, that's the deepest of religious instincts. And it's unbelievably deep in human beings. And, and we have this mimicry, this capacity for mimicry that's an integral part of our cognitive architecture. And it's the precursor to thought. And we do identify, you notice you admire someone, that is the instinct to mimic, because to admire is then to want to be that. And that's the action of the moral instinct. It finds a target in the world and it says, well, I could be like that. But at first it says, this person is attractive, or this person is compelling. It grabs you. And that's the instinct for further development. It's a very positive thing. It can be a very positive thing.
Who'd you tap into? Was it a biblical figure? Was it a philosopher? Was it a leader? Was it a political leader? When you were going through your moment the last 12 months, who were you saying, at least he overcame it, I can? Here's what he went through was worse. Was there anybody you would go to?
Well, there has been throughout my life all sorts of intellectual figures, figures from my own life as well. I found many things about my father extremely admirable, and still do. My mother as well. And so I was fortunate to have people in my immediate environment who played that role for me. And that's a huge gift. I have all sorts of intellectual idols, I would say. And there are people whose work I've read deeply, and that's been extremely useful to me. And then that shades into the consideration of religious figures at some point. And I've spent a lot of time studying religious thinking and trying to, what religious thinking is in some sense is the collective attempt to specify the ideal for mimicry. So imagine that you have those 8 figures in your painting. So imagine there's something about each of those people that you found compelling and admirable. So then imagine that you could abstract out from that what was compelling and admirable and make one person out of that. That was sort of the union of all those 8. It was everything good about those 8 people brought into one person. Well, that's approaching a divine figure. And when you hear Christian statements, for example, like Christ is the King of Kings, that actually means something technical from a psychological perspective. What it means is that, and I'm not speaking in religious terms here precisely, although it shades into the religious, is that a religious ideal is in fact the abstracted representation of what is admirable as such. And it's extremely useful to have that made into an abstraction to some degree too, because it also means that you then have something that you're responsible to. So let's say and you've done this with your painting, you have these 8 people who you're now, what would you say? You're responsible to them. You're accountable to them. You're accountable to their spirit. And so now your conscience can speak with their collective voice, and it can tell you when you're less than you could be. And then you can use that to guide you to manifest that spirit that's embodied in those 8 people. And that's a pathway to further growth. And it's something that we're hypothetically, in all of our conversations, when we're demanding from one another that we respond properly, we're trying to evoke that ideal from ourselves and from other people. We're constantly doing that. That's partly why I love podcasts, because that can really happen in real time. Like I just released a conversation with JOCKO WILLINK today where I think that happened for much of the conversation. And you know, as I get healthier, I'm hoping that will work better. And to the degree that we're doing the right thing at the moment, you know, we're doing our best to manifest that abstracted ideal. And the other thing that's so remarkable about that is that as long as we do it, the better we do it, the more compelling we're going to find the conversation. The time will disappear. We'll get absorbed into the conversation and we'll walk away thinking, I don't know what was happening, but that was worth doing. And you get that, you get there, as far as I'm concerned, you get there with truth. That's the pathway. Spoken truth.
Jordan, who are those names? You said mom, dad. Who else are some of those names that you go through?
Well, Carl Jung was an unbelievably profound influence on me. Almost all the major psychotherapists, I read them deeply. Carl Rogers was real useful to me. Abraham Maslow, Freud, I read a lot of Freud. And then there's Alexander Solzhenitsyn was a huge influence. Friedrich Nietzsche, I read most of his major works when I was young. And then a large number of scientists, Jeffrey Gray, who's a neuroscientist, what would you say, clawed my way through his work, which is very, very dense. It was extremely useful. He was a good model as a scientist. My mentor at McGill, Robert Peel, was someone who taught me a lot about administration and about giving credit where credit is due, and being comfortable in your own domain of competence. Like Bob, who I am still in regular contact with, Bob and I had different skills, and he was able to value my skills without ever feeling intimidated. And I could do the same with his skills, and that made our partnership extremely productive. And so that was very useful.
So if you like this little short clip from an interview I did, click over here to watch the entire interview. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.